Oh, no, Todd said that he'd be glad to have you go first
Perfect.
if you'd like.
Yeah,
But,
I've got some slides, but it's really not a big deal. If they don't know it, I can do it with or without it. And
If I went first, would it give them more time to find your documents?
It hasn't come through yet.
yeah, either way, yeah, it's a pretty big file. It's uploading. I mean, you can just also skip it. It's nice if we have it, just because pictures are nice. But
Yeah.
there's really nothing else beyond that.
yeah. Well, we'll, call him,
If it comes in, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
so
Okay,
we'll,
I can do it if you don't mind.
Your copy.
Yeah, so basically, as I understand it, Darby was in here speaking with you all, spoke a little bit about what we've been doing with dry beans, and then you all asked us to come in. And so to that extent, I don't know if there's anything specifically you want to know. I want to make sure that I speak to that. But if you're looking for a general kind of just overview of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're going, I'm happy to do that.
yeah. Well, we'll introduce ourselves.
Okay.
And then we'll, so I'll call the meeting to order. It's Tuesday morning, January 23rd. And this is the Agricultural Committee is a meeting. And we have two entrepreneurs with us, not dairy, not cheese, but in the milling and bean business. And to just a little overview, a week or so ago, we have a lot of quite a few small farms that have gone out of business in Vermont in the last 2 to 3 years. And we've dipped at this point under 500. And our farmland, some bigger farms are buying it, but some of it's sitting fallow. And so we invited, and we'd like to keep that in ag if at all possible, of course. So we invited Heather Darby in to give us an overview of what the extension has been doing up in around the state in regards to utilizing this farmland for other things than dairy and how it was going. And she's been doing a lot of research and growing studies in regards to growing different grains and how well they do or not do. And that she seemed to think that we could grow good beans here in Vermont and that there was a market for these products and that we should promote that to the rest of the community. So that's how we got onto UFO. And so anyways, that's where we are. And we'll run around the room real quick, introduce ourselves, and then you guys in the meantime will figure out who wants to call first.
Morning, I'm Brian Collmore, Senator from the Rutland District.
Irene Runner, the North, which includes Fairfax.
Brian Campion, Bennington County District.
Rich Westman, I'm the senator from Robomoya District.
And I'm Bobby Starr from Orleans County, and I also have 4 towns from Caledonia County. So from our introductions, you can see we're pretty well scattered around and have a real interest in our ag sector. So Joe, I guess we'll, and if it's easier for you to speak from there, you don't need to move over to the middle chair there, but
Okay.
you can give us a little overview of what you think about the bean business and if it's a viable thing and if there's more acreage that we could maybe use. But your thoughts in regards to the subject matter?
Absolutely. And so I started Vermont Bean Crafters in around 2009 in West Rutland at Boardman Hill Farm. And Greg Cox is one of the reasons Bean Crafters exists. He gave me my first acre to grow on, helped convert part of his barn to be a small commercial kitchen so we could get started. And we started just at the Rutland Winter Farmers Market. The following year, added 3 more markets and one in New York City, got picked up by Black River Produce, started selling to restaurants, retailers, and institutions around Vermont. And through this patchwork quilt that is the agricultural sector in Vermont, was able to kind of just form these relationships and build up capacity and resources over time to grow it over the last, what's that now, 15 years? And so right now we're at a point where we're realizing, in the 1800s, as I understand it, Vermont was sending rail cars of beans to, Boston. Since we've forfeited a lot of that infrastructure and those acres to all points west, and the majority of the beans grown in the United States, which is, I believe the last numbers I saw, it's just short of like $1 billion commodity at scale. We are seeing a lot of that happen in Michigan, in Colorado, the Palouse region, which is northern Idaho into Washington. And some of those are practical agronomic reasons. It's drier, there's less disease pressure, but we certainly can grow good beans in Vermont. The islands in particular are a really good geography for that. The point that you were making about land going through transition, when I was starting out, one of the things when I was trying to figure out what to do with my life in my early 20s was coming out of Green Mountain College, and I read the Farm to Plate report and was just realizing what a small percentage, like a fraction of a percentage, dry beans and grains made up of Vermont's agricultural portfolio, while those are things that the vast majority of us are eating every day. And so for a lot of those practical reasons, I was working on diversified organic veg farms and trying to figure out how to move forward with life. And I was realizing I basically didn't want to compete with all my friends who were also, starting diverse farms at that point. And I was passionate about beans and grains for a lot of different reasons, but it seemed like a way that we could kind of grow the pie instead of fighting over the same pieces of the pie. So dry beans at that point, there were Jack Laser, my friend Ryan Yoder down in Danby, and a few other people were growing dry beans, but the majority of the beans being grown in Vermont were soybeans. The Northern Grain Growers Association was taking off. At that point, Ken Van Hansinga and a few other people were growing dry beans. Ben Gleason tried a little bit, but I would say there was like 1,000 or 2,000 acres in the state. Meanwhile, in New York State, for context, there's tens of thousands of acres. And the farms in New York State, particularly, are selling they're at a scale that they're selling to the export markets. They're selling to Goya and things like that, down to ports in Miami, to the big canneries in the Midwest. All of that infrastructure is just one truckload drive away. So when we talk about things happening at scale, Bean Crafters is, just a small entity in a larger cosmos of things happening in the bean world. There's a lot of global trends that are supporting an increased demand. I see us as being kind of catalytic and hopefully helping people test the waters and build a case for themselves to grow beans. And I see as a company, be building a demand for hundreds of acres of beans, but ourselves probably not the tens of thousands of acres we're talking about. I do see there being markets for that many acres in the short term, interacting with the large seed cleaning facilities like Genesee Valley Bean Company and Seneca Bean and Grain in the Finger Lakes region, which is a big business. And again, just a one-day truck drive away, not completely inaccessible. So markets go for Vermont growers. And the flip side is for higher value crops. A lot of our products are certified organic. We're generally paying, 2 to 3 times as much per hundredweight for beans as the commodity prices are paying.
Organic will go that much more.
Mhm. And we are also, experiencing year over year double-digit growth. And we're currently now at a point where we're getting calls from, for example, like the Department of Education of New York State to put in a bid for making one of the products we make are bean burgers for the public school system there. So we're starting to try to piece together. We have a commercial kitchen in Warren where we make stuff, but we're putting together trying to work out the details to have a network of co-packers that could basically use our recipes with our supply chain, you know, Vermont organic growers to create the products. One or two of these folks are in Vermont that we're talking with to scale up. And so we're at a really exciting inflection point. One of the bottlenecks has been in getting more Vermont beans versus New York beans is an optical sorter. So, you know, so the equipment with which to make food safe, to make sure there's no stones or debris that are in the beans that could be, you know, someone could crack a tooth on. With milled flour, it's less of an issue because it's going through a mill. There's a little bit of different things, like it might damage the stones a little bit, but it's not going to make it to the end consumer. That's a big existential threat for selling to a K through 12 or a hospital. So we are navigating that. We just got a big grant last year in partnership with Sodexo, which is one of our big customers, and NOFA Vermont, to basically a 6-figure grant from the Kendall Foundation for their food. So what do they call it? The Food Solutions New England or Food Vision New England Prize or something.
I heard on the radio this morning that there's a big grant coming out of Washington for the organic products.
There it is. I believe that's what that NOFA just won a 7-figure partnership grant,
Yeah.
and that is going to be focused on organic dairy in particular, I believe. A suite of things, but I believe
That
organic dairy.
dairy was mentioned,
It's going to be a good chunk of that.
but they have to use organic beans or organic grains, so.
Exactly. And so this is the cool thing when we think about the numbers. I don't know what numbers. I'd be curious what your understanding of the numbers are. Let me know if that's too much noise in the background.
No, it's not. It's good to hear that.
Yeah. There's basically hundreds of thousands of acres going through generational succession or otherwise for the ag land in Vermont. A lot of those land bases tied up in dairy agriculture. The organic dairy in particular, which has been also seeing a lot of consolidation and so forth, are pretty well poised with the infrastructure to grow dry beans and to add organic grains to their mix, from grain on-farm grain storage to combine harvesters, to you know, just the horsepower it would take to grow and cultivate beans. So we are in the middle of trying to create a pipeline of onboarding growers to make stuff for our products. And the ones that and some of the ones that we're working with are coming from the dairy world. We're also trying to work out stuff for smaller heirloom plots with veg producers. You know, so higher value, smaller acreage, not as big a market, but more of a premium. And we're kind of approaching it from those two different universes. And so far, you know, in our bean burgers, we use, you know, many tons of local organic black beans, but we also use tons of carrots. We go through actual tons of kale and over a ton of parsley. We go through tons of buckwheat. One of our bean growers also grows buckwheat for Burkett Mills in the Finger Lakes. We buy in buckwheat growth and buckwheat flour and work those. And there's a whole suite of specialty crops that I think are currently underrepresented in our food shed. But the cool thing about value-added products is we're not counting on these different chefs to necessarily have to do from scratch cooking. Everything about our products is set to meet the child nutrition label requirements of USDA. Everything about how they're packaged, it's just like one case fits on a full-size sheet pan. Like, who wants details like that? We're really trying to grease the skids and get rid of the barriers to entry for the growers to bring these new products, these new crops to market. And I think we're really still just on the ground floor, and there's a lot of space for us to do more. And just, if we're tangentially about 2015, next to the Bean Crafters Kitchen on this Arm and Warren where we're located, we started Altos Tortilleria, which is a similar idea to tortilla bakery that uses local organic heirloom corn to make traditional tortillas. That started there for 2 years, grew out of there. It's in the old north end of Burlington now. 3 years ago, we added a new location in the old north end of Burlington where we make organic wheat flour-based tortilla. And so we have a crew of about 10 people that make like 30,000 corn tortillas, 4,000 flour tortillas each week, as well as a line of as well as a line of fried chips and everything. And the one thing that I'll loop back around to is that this Kendall fries, the way that we're looking to get more black beans into institutions is by displacing number 10 cans of beans with just pre-cooked frozen 10-pound bags of beans. So we're actually able to, I haven't been able to find a cannery that wants to partner with us yet. I'm still exploring that. In the meantime, we've had a lot of success, and all of the Sodexo campuses around the state are using our beans. There's certain stations at UVM that exclusively use our beans in place of number 10 cans now, and we're shipping over 1,000 pounds of cooked beans through Black River to various accounts around the state, from restaurants to hospitals to higher ed. And I'm in the midst of working with the Food Directors Association to get those default reality for K through 12. We're up against a USDA commodities program that gives them free beans, but some of the schools, because of the low quality of those commodities, are opting into these beans, and the prices work with their budgets.
Brian. So when you give them to Black River, are they ready to go, or does Black River do sort of the processing?
We do all the processing,
You do all
there's
the
the distributor.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Sure, so the switch from cans to like plastic bags is what you're telling us?
Basically, yeah.
Is it less weight to ship? Is it less expensive? I'm just curious. what you're saying.
There's a confluence of things. Yeah, there's less of the capital intensiveness of needing to build a cannery.
Right.
There's a lot of the canneries are in the Midwest. There's a couple in Maine. The ones in Maine don't work with number 10 cans. They do smaller ones. So we need to be partnering with someone in Ohio or Michigan and work a slot to the production floor. It's convoluted. We would not be cost competitive at navigating that, but we cook them, we water cool them, and then bag them up, freeze them. So the thing about this is it's predictable, easy unit volume to go with. If you've ever had to work with canned beans in a large context, it takes up a lot of room in storage. It takes up, when you're processing, like, it's a lot of work to get the bottom sludgy beans out of the bottom of the can. The quality is variable, and then you're filling up these big recycling bins, and people are having to do laps to dumpsters. Aluminum's pretty good throughput life cycle for recyclability and everything like that. I'm not sure that there's an environmental benefit to using a plastic bag in a cardboard box. I'd love someone to do that analysis. I don't have that skill set. But we found that we can basically cook them 500 pounds at a time. And we have to do that for the value-added products we make anyway. So this allows us to use infrastructure we already have. It becomes passive background revenue production while we're finishing other production things. And it bookends the day. Walk in, start the tank, and then by the end of the day, we're cooling and packing the beans while everything else happens in between. And so we're finding it's a way that it would be a lot more complicated for us to continuously grow our bean burger production, for example, than adding this new SKU in particular. And the main benefit about this too is there's so many different menu options for people to integrate them to. So you can only do so much with a bean burger, but a 10-pound block of organic black beans you can put into hundreds of different recipes.
So do you grow a lot of your own beans, or?
That was my original dream. And then I realized we need more markets for the existing growers. So we in 2021 closed on the farm with our kitchen. We've been renting the kitchen for 6 years. So I do grow a small amount of beans and vegetables and things like that. But the needs for the company supersede what we can grow on there's just 6 croppable acres. And so if any rotations, we're really only popping 2 or 3 acres that we could grow.
Of course, we're interested in the business of, what do you do with these beans when you grow? And in the growing process, do they have to, you're organic, but the organic beans that you grow, do they have to be sprayed with an insecticide or something for weeds and bugs?
The vast majority of management happens with cultivation. There are some OMRI approved insecticides, like potato leaf hoppers can be an issue in certain growing years. And so people would use a pyrethrin-based spray if they got hit hard with them. But in a lot of cases, as long as those hoppers don't come in when the plants are too young, they can just grow past that pressure, which generally only lasts a week or two. So there's definitely stresses and risks that need to be managed, but the flip side is a lot of the large acreage conventional beans that are grown in the Finger Lakes region, they're spraying glyphosate as a pre-emergent herbicide, and then after they've been planted, they'll spray it again. There's a few different that is become, I think that's a primary management that happens. There's a few different applications throughout the course of the year. It adds up, I believe, to something like a pint or a quart per acre per year or something like that. And that's what the conventional side of that coin is. So on the organic side, it's a lot of mechanical cultivation, tine weeders, finger weeders, basket weeders. And there's some pretty cool scaled up large acreage implements to do, 16 rows at a time of that sort of cultivation or more.
Is last week we had the different ag groups upstairs. And one thing I learned that I never even heard of before that night was that they developed a laser type treatment to do away with weeds and
That's news to me too.
so we don't have to use pesticides and all these things then. So, besides finding out what we do in your line of work, the couple of things we'd like to get away from the use of pesticides, if at all possible, and herbicides, as well as most of our dairy feed grains are either trucked in to Vermont or they're railed into Vermont. And if we could grow it right here, we could utilize our own land, have it closer to home so that we don't have to rely on trains and trucks to get the goods here to help environmentally. So
Yeah.
it's really a two-pronged, a three-pronged approach that we're trying to figure out how to put it all together to work and put our own people to work and utilize our own land and help the environment all at the same time.
You're solving lots of things simultaneously.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Joe, it's interesting you mentioned Greg Cox. The chair and I don't think anybody else was on the committee that year, but we went down to Rutland and took a tour of what was at the time the winter home of the farmers market. I know there's been some mitigation necessary with the land on which that sits. So it was a good tour, and actually, in all honesty, Greg Cox ran against me. Well, there were six candidates with 3 seats, so it wasn't necessarily him against me kind of thing. But I know he's been doing that a long time. I didn't realize you started in West Side, so that's great.
Yeah.
And now you're in Warren, is that what I'm getting?
Yeah. Now I got this crazy life where I live. We moved last year in Montpelier. My partner's a preschool teacher in Burlington still, and then I spend 2 days a week working in Burlington and the rest of the week down in Warren because the tortilla making happens in Burlington. It's all very silly.
Yeah. So they bring the product to you and you distribute it? Is that, no?
No, we're the ones making it. So we
You
bring in
are?
raw organic ingredient.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll bring in the whole dry beans. We'll bring in the whole kernel corn. At the tortilleria, we fresh mill. It's a different process than you think of with wheat. We are taking the whole kernel corn, steeping it with slaked limestone in a process called nixtamalization. It's the way tortillas have been made for thousands of years, and then it gets wet milled into a dough that gets instantly turned into tortillas. So they go through a conveyor-based oven and cook both sides. So yeah, it's different. And so yeah, we are value-added producers versus distributors. We lean heavily on other distributors.
Okay.
Yeah.
Senator, one of my champions, obviously.
I'll listen to the tape.
Trying to steal his own way.
But Rutland's, you know, I was trying for a long time to find a way to keep growing in the Rutland area and the Vermont Farmers Food Center. You know, I was on the farmers market board when all of that was
Okay.
going on.
Yeah.
And so the timeline didn't quite work out, but I was, you know, talking at different points like, oh, could we find a way to remodel one of those other buildings on that site to become, you know, an incubator kitchen or something. But ultimately, we moved up to the Mad River Valley because the Mad River Food Hub opened.
Okay.
And that was our stepping stone to get to where we are now. We were the first people in the Mad River Food Hub with Joe Bewley at Screaming Ridge Farm and Joe's Soups. And we were there for 3 years before finding our own kitchen space.
Do you want to show the slideshow?
I think it's probably too much for the time. Yeah, but thank you.
I'll put it on the webpage.
Okay.
And then they can-
Then we can look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I want to be sensitive to everyone's time. It's a little
Well-
bit before 11:30.
Yeah. Well, and then Todd can go and then unless you've got to leave right away. You know, if we have some time after Todd, we can have a general discussion and go from there.
Yeah. As
So,
long as June stays mellow, we're.
you mentioned, Jack Glazer and he was from, where I.
Oh, sure. He was
He had
definitely
his
on
own
board.
grain mill and, the whole nine yards, do a lot of things.
Absolutely. He was one of our primary providers of beans for the first few years. And I was up there a number of times and I know they're still trying to explore what to do with the old granary right now.
So, thanks a lot, Joe, and, we'll switch over to Todd.
Should I wait?
Yeah. Todd's a constituent of mine from up in the Greensboro area. And like to welcome you to the committee, Todd, and we met upstairs last week as well, just talking and shooting the breeze and so we sort of had this all set up prior to that upstairs, but it all kind of worked out well. So good morning and welcome.
It's an honor to be with you all to support agriculture. Jack Laser was always a phone call away. He was my teacher of grain. And we honor him today. And he really helped the rising tide of grain in Vermont. This is winter rye. Winter rye is what I've grown in Greensboro on Thornhill Farm for the last 8 years. Winter rye is suited for Vermont. It's planted in September. It goes through the winter. Comes out in the spring, about 6 inches high in the spring, and with the water of the snow and the spring rains, it grow deep. So that helps with climate changes where the summers are often dry and unpredictable. Briefly, my path to growing grain and working in the grain community was with honeybees. Ran 1,900 beehives in Champlain Valley, Vermont, St. Lawrence River Valley of New York for years, worked for the Department of Agriculture in Montpelier as a bee inspector, and founded Caledonia Spirits. And turned that over to the team about 8 years ago to grow grain for them for their whiskey program. They're diversifying from gin and vodka and growing and buying grain for whiskey. I'm president of the Northern Grain Growers and work very closely with Heather Darby. It's an exciting community. Grain with farmers. This is winter rye.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Farmers in the grain community, millers, bakers, extension scientists, brewers, distillers like myself. It's really a great force for community change. I'm transitioning now from the farm in Greensboro to starting a grain center on Route 7 in Harrisburg. Champlain Valley Grain Center. The first right-hand turn as you're going south from Charlotte to Burlington into Virgins, where there's an Amtrak passenger station and a park and ride.
Yeah.
We'll buy the land next month. Right now you see 3 beehives from Route 7 on the edge of the trees out of the winter wind. Here's some elevations of the grain center. We've been 24 months into permitting. We have all of our permits, including the final one, the land use permit for Act 50. It's not an easy process. It's very expensive, but we're committed to it. And it took 24 months, and we're grateful for that. The mission of the Grain Center is to support the working landscape, jobs, and farm families. And we'll receive grain from farmers on the day of harvest and after. Dry it, clean it, store it in silo, take it out of the silo, clean it again with another cleaner. Clean it in the building for a baker, then make whiskey on site.
So you're gonna have, storage units to store the product in besides the building, or?
Yes, there are 4 silos on this site plan that are just north of the building. 4 representing wheat, corn, barley, and rye. We'll see how it works out. So we'll have a community cafe using all organic grain for bread.
It's gonna be organic.
All organic. It's important to me. I'm on the board of the National Organic Farmers Association. I really think we have to take care of our soil and our diets and look to the future. We respect those growing conventional. We're growing most of the food in our country conventionally, and there's a lot of challenges.
Todd, I can just interrupt for a
Go
second.
ahead.
Is the land that you're talking about before Route 22 cuts into Virginia or north of them?
On the right-hand turn, there are 3 right-hand turns from Route 7 into Virgins.
Okay,
This is the northern one. And when you're at that right-hand turn, the land is on the right,
okay.
on the ramp. And then you go ahead and make a right-hand turn into the project, left the park and ride and the Amtrak passenger
Okay.
station.
So you go under the underpass.
Right before the underpass.
Yeah.
The underpass is the Virgins-Ferrisburgh border. We're all in Ferrisburgh. That's right there.
So this will be very visible, right?
Very
You can have
visible.
signage and you can really promote this, which I really love, that you're not hiding it.
Right,
You're not stuck behind acres and acres of land. You're right on Route 7,
right.
22, right?
One of our former members, names on that railroad,
Okay.
Roger K. Hart Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Dairy farm. Seen that.
Yeah,
I had an option on the land 30 years ago. It was too early for a younger commercial beekeeper. Went up the road and had a honey house for 8 years. But this is a great piece of land and it encouraged us because what we want to do is bring bread and food and whiskey directly to the people. The state of Vermont allows us to sell all those things.
Bill Miller, union right there.
I
knew you'd get
Yes, we will, and I look forward to breaking bread with you and serving you, and we'll take a little prayer.
Yeah. When you're starting something, it takes a lot of prayers.
Yeah, well, Bobby needs all the prayers if he can.
Yeah. Well, I've been 30 years at it, and it's nice to be back with a contract to buy the land. The state and the town of Ferrisburgh have been very supportive. I was yesterday at the North Hardwick Farm in Hardwick, Vermont, at the Myers.
Oh, yeah.
And they are one of the dairy farmers that I work with that have stopped milking cows. They ceased milking dairy cows in 2019. And I helped them design a farm distillery. And they have changed into beef cows and growing grain, rye, barley, oats, and corn. And, they're now making whiskey on their dairy farm. And actually making some whiskey for me that will start at aging. The typical number of years for aging of 3 to 4 years. That will have it for sale at the Grain Center in Harrisburg earlier.
That, the, up there on that farm, it's not Andrew, right? It's his brother, or is it a partnership?
It's a family of 4 brothers and 2 parents. Andrew is the second brother. His work is in hardware with Vermont Soy and Coatings. It's the 3rd and 4th brother, Andrew's brothers, Nick and Taylor.
Yeah. Andrew didn't try to talk you into putting your granary up in Hardwood?
Of course he did, but he understands that, the land that we have in Harrisburg is a better location. You know, I had a distillery in Hardwick with Caledonia Spirits in the early years before they moved to Montpelier.
Yeah.
And we love Hardwick and we love Orleans County. But this will be a better location on 2 busy roads where they come together and work, and a larger, number of farms that want to grow grain. The young farmers and the older ones are coming to me and we're working contracts for them to grow grain for the Grain Center. And there's more of that in Champlain Valley.
And what's the tonnage or the acreage that you feel you might be able to handle once you get your granary all set up? Have you estimated that out?
I will know more later. The distillery will have the capacity to make 50 barrels, large barrels, 53-gallon barrels of whiskey a year, 50. Now, that's an expense, so we have to ease into it. Every time you fill a barrel of whiskey, it's over $1,200. So we have to be careful. So we're gonna start slow. We're gonna go slow and steady. I stopped talking with farmers about asking for grain because so many want to grow grain. You know, they have land, they have tractors, they have family, they want to stay on the land.
Yeah.
And that's part of what compels me to do this. Same thing that Joe's doing with beans.
I think that, that's a story we hear as well, and there's multi-family members.
Yeah.
They don't all like dairy,
Yes.
but yet they like the farming and farmland and want to do something different, and live here and, so that's good.
Some of you may know the Jang Farm in Waterford, Vermont, the town on the Connecticut River. Sean Jang and I work closely together. They stopped milking cows.
They're all done now.
And they now board out heifers and grow,
Yeah,
pay for the heifers, big farms. But they're growing 200 acres of grain right now. We traded a silo with Sean after we stopped growing barley and focused on rye. And he traded it for 3 years of planting a crop, which was good for us. $1,600 every time we had a custom planter come in. And it was cheaper for us to pay that than to use our 60-year-old John Deere that took 12 days. You know, with labor and time and breakdown. And I helped them start their marketing, and they're selling flour all over Vermont, New Hampshire right now to homes and breweries.
and that not milled here though, right?
We're all getting mills. The best mill in America, in the world, and I hope there are others just as good in the world, is made in Marsville by New American Stone Mills. Andrew Hine, Barry Granite. Stone mills mill the grain cool. Jack Laser was the first to really alert me to this. His corn meal had to be kept in a refrigerator. I go down to South Carolina and we're proud that the cornmeal could stay on the store shelf for a year. All the good stuff's been taken out of it. The oils that are temperature sensitive. So in Vermont, like with Jack Laser, we're very respectful of food quality. So the stone mill keeps the grain cold. Other mills heat it up and hurt the oils and the nutritional value. So the Jangs have a new American stone mill
You do it right on the farm.
right there. And we have one that we bought from Nordic Farm, Charlotte, when they stopped. About 13 months ago, we bought that. Some of you may have the Elmore Mountain Bread in Lamoille County that Andrew's wife Claire makes. They all work together. But they're a great partnership of husband and wife making meals and making bread. So we're not gonna go the model of what Heather's visiting. Goodbye, Joe.
I'll be back.
Okay.
Go to Vermont where the kids can come to the.
Yeah,
Well, why not?
Brian's looking forward to taking a nap with him.
My
12:30, right?
My wife's trying to get me to bring our puppy down.
Oh, yeah.
You got it, we're Benny it.
Yeah, yeah, I'd be at.
Where was I? In Quebec, they have a central location that collects the grain, cleans it and mills it and ships it out. We're not going that way. We're all getting mills on our farms
Oh,
and in our businesses. And I think it makes sense. Part of me always felt when Heather talked about it, it's not gonna work here. And it's unfolding to be exactly what we want to do, which that we're all in charge of our own milling, storage. But part of what's kept grain farming from really sprouting and growing in Vermont is a lack of cleaning and drying and storage. So that's what we're gonna provide at the Grain Center in Harrisburg. A study in the 1950s said that was holding back grain farming. And we're really delighted and happy to be offering those services to farmers that don't want to buy a $50,000 dryer or can, or a, $20,000 silo, or the mill is about $30,000.
So, alright, so when a farmer X brings their grain to you, they have already had to mill it on the farm and then you clean it and store it, or how, or can they bring it to you and you would run it through your mill?
The milling is always at the very end. So what'll be brought in? And when it's milled, it's already clean and dry. So what's gonna be brought in, like, are rye berries, round rye berries.
Mhm.
And depending on what drying they have and how close they are, and we're working with people in Rutland County that are an hour away, as well as Addison County that are half an hour away. We will dry it. When it comes out of the field in the combine, it's 16% moisture. So we'll dry it down to 12%.
Yeah.
When grain is 12% moisture, it's bulletproof and it'll last for 2 years in storage.
Won't be there.
So we'll dry it. And then there's a lot of cleaning. We take out the weed seeds and the leaves of weeds, all that have water and pathogens. And we clean it before it goes in the silo. So it dries better there and it's happier and cleaner, taking the microbes out that come in on the leaves of the weeds, taking out the grasshoppers that don't help anything.
No protein. and-
That's protein.
Yeah, really.
But the millers don't want, the bakers don't want to see grasshoppers in their back.
Probably no.
So then we'll clean it and dry it and store it. So we're doing a little bit of what's done in Quebec because we have to do it anyway. And we're gonna be at a central location, and by providing these services, we'll encourage more farmers to come. So we'll see how clean they bring it in, and we'll see how dry they bring it in. But we'll have to have it at 12% dry or it'll go bad.
Yeah, right.
Could you just quickly explain the cleaning process? How does that?
Happy to. Cleaning is an art. And there are various ways to clean. We have a rotary cleaner on the day of harvest that we borrowed from Jack Laser for years
You know,
with screens. And
Okay.
it's sized so the grain seeds fall through one screen, but the other seeds don't, and they're directed out to the side. So that's the initial cleaning. It's real fast because you're bringing in tons an hour. Goes into the silo, dries. The air comes in from the bottom of the silo and goes up and dries it inch by inch. We'll have a dryer in Ferris, that'll take 2 months. The dryer in Ferrisburg will dry in 3 hours. That's the $50,000 dryer.
Okay.
Come out of the silo. Then it's dry, 12%, go into totes, ton totes, big white super sacks. The forklift on the tractor brings it into the building. It's vacuum sucked out of the tote. Andrew Hine from New American Stone Mills designed this. And it goes through a disc mill, rotary disc mill, that pulls out some of the wheat seeds. There are little pockets in the discs and spits them in the belly of the machine. And then it goes to a clipper. Every medium and small grain farm in North America for 100 years has a clipper. And with gravity and shaking and different screens, the good seeds go one way and the undesirables go another way. And then we just got a gravity table from Minnesota, very exciting. After 6 years of looking for it and paying for it. And that will clean it even further with gravity, and the denser seeds go to one side and the less dense go to another, and you keep adjusting it and you fine tune it. So basically it's all in what we call equilibrium. You can't really touch it long term. You have to just kind of watch all the machines because it's so labor intensive. You have to just have the machines do the work.
And what about the byproduct? Is that something that can be used for something?
The byproducts, mostly from whiskey, will be offered to dairy farmers. The DeVos farm right across the railroad track, Ferrisburg. We're close to them for 30 years. We had a big bee yard on their land. And they still hay the land. And a lot of farmers want to get the byproducts to feed beef cattle and dairy cattle.
That's off the drying and like as the product goes through these different tables and it sorts out and shakes out and the seeds fall through, that product there, farmers could use to feed livestock and.
Yes, right now we have friends that come and get it for feeding deer and moose and turkey and chickens and cows.
Say that too well.
I'm not a hunter. They bring me venison. Do you think I should look up on the regulations a little bit more?
No, I'd keep doing what I'm doing if it's doing a good thing.
Yeah, well, they don't shoot them. They just make sure they don't starve.
Wow, yeah, regulators to get that part.
So that's where the byproducts go now.
Okay.
And then the wheat seeds just are composted
Yeah,
because there's no value in those.
no. So that's pretty good then, so everything is used except for weed seeds.
Yeah.
And if we get that laser treatment stuff going through to kill the weeds, shouldn't be too many weed seeds.
Right.
Yeah,
Chip, go ahead.
that was, I mean, I'd never even heard of that, before last week. The idea of using a laser to zap the weeds and so we're gonna hear more about that.
It's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So are you finished with your?
Well, I could keep you here to dinner, but I think the governor's gonna talk.
Right, just at one.
And I'm excited to.
And we already have our seat.
Yeah.
The only problem is once you get in, you can't get out of it. And
Okay, thanks for
when
that.
you do get out of it, to leave the room, you're taking your life right in your own hands because everybody's in a mad scramble.
Yeah.
We're gonna get that under control and change.
Well, when you're driving by Grain Center and see a red building, we hope you'll stop in and get a tour.
So you think this summer you may get to it or?
Maybe next year. It's a long process. There's a lot of things to check off the list and we're going at it slow and steady and I have to turn the farm over to new stewards. And that's a process too. The farm where we are right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So how complicated was the permitting process, if I can ask?
Well, it took 24 months
Is it complicated?
and
20.
24. And it was over $250,000. It was tough. We love Vermont. We're committed to Vermont for better or other. But there were things that we had to do, like pay $6,000 for a traffic study that weren't needed. And all those things add up.
Where that, I mean, they must have a ton of traffic studies on that Route 7.2A intersection.
Yeah, an engineer could look at the information, it's 2 hours and give us the results, but you have to have a specialist in traffic and they have you. And it's a tough process and I was only able to do that because I had the building in Hardwick that I sold, the old distillery to Lamoille Valley Ford, the building in the back, which is not something I do every day. And I just put all the money into 2 years of engineering, architectural or legal.
That's kind of sad.
I'm committed. And just with every project, basically you have to put your last dollar into the project. Yeah, and then live in the attic.
Now, was that part of that because there isn't water or sewer there or?
There must be.
There's a municipal water line that goes to the property that I saw put in 30 years ago that feeds Amtrak. We have the best land for wastewater from Burlington to Middlebury. The glaciers left a deposit, 4 times as big as this room that's right there. So, but it just takes time. It's very exacting.
This is the bordering property to the train station.
Yes.
Yeah. With a parking lot in the middle.
Yeah, I know the parking right out behind the train station.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that, so there was no opportunity to hook up into the sewer system for gens or?
Virgins has a policy, they don't do that, period. So, we couldn't do this unless the glaciers had left
Yeah.
glacial till. So everything came together to be an incredible site. And the gift from the town of Ferrisburg, who owns the land, that the price is very reasonable. And that was encouraging. They turned down a Stewart's gas station and a solid waste district and big car dealership. They want agriculture there.
Yeah, that's really good.
So
What's the title of your business again?
Champlain Valley Grain Center. When you see that red building, you'll know that we're there. By the end of next year.
So is there, well, you've already been to heaven and back, is there anything that we can, might help you with?
You're a great help with what you do every time you're in session and after. We've applied to the state of Vermont Agency of Agriculture for the grant. We turned it in midnight last Friday. Will it allow us to do a lot of this, to have a solar array. We'd like to be all electric from the sun. It's an investment, but it'll surely help if we get that grant. I'm not saying you should do anything, because I can't really tell you what to do. Just by being here, you inspire us. But we'd like not to use fossil fuels. And then after 10 years, you have basically free electricity. So we're looking at that. In the grant, we have asked for support for a pizza oven, a wood-fired oven.
Fire.
Yeah, a beautiful oven. And so beautiful that people will come and be inspired to eat more pizza and consider buying whiskey.
How much is the grant for?
It's up to $250,000. It's the big one for value added
But,
producers.
but that call up to 250,000 qualifies. I mean, you aren't asking for above and beyond what they already can do. I think Cabot got one of the larger
Yeah.
to help their production.
If you get one, it's for half of what you would pay. So we would pay, I think numbers, if I remember, 381,000. And if we got the maximum cap from them, it's 250. But we'd be grateful to get, 38,000 for a wood-fired oven. Or the solar array. It's very competitive. Vermont is blessed with a lot of qualified applicants, and we respect that. So we're hopefully gonna be one of them, and it's a two-step process. You have to get through the first step and be a finalist for the second. I think it's turned
See
into
that
March.
through the innovation or Laura's department. They're also, working lands program over there where the grants and money's lower. That you might be able to get.
I hope so. This is a working lands enterprise grant that the Vermont Agency of Agriculture administers. So we're just doing our best. And keep going, and with every week it takes to do this, it gets better with design and putting all the right equipment together. We're buying the equipment to clean grain to use on the farm in Greensboro here, and we'll take it all down there. Because you can't do it all at once.
And, I mean, have you presented your overall plan to the agency or people at the ag?
Anson Tevis has been very supportive and wrote a letter of support for another application that I hope we're in the finals for the USDA Organic Market Development.
Yeah,
And that would be for the grain dryer.
yeah,
And he was very supportive and wrote a beautiful letter.
that's good. So they're being very helpful.
Yes.
And I mean, we found that to be true, whether it's grain or dairy, beef, they work hard to promote all types of ag. And now, your granary though still won't be doing, grain that like, well, down the road or up the road from Phoenix Peas. I mean, they must buy a tremendous amount of grain from that and elsewhere and
Yeah.
pulling grain from Monterey and Bordeaux. There's a lot of commercial and grain.
Most of that grain, not all, but most of it is grain that's sent in railroad cars from Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Illinois. So that's conventional. Our focus is really on Vermont grown, organic, for bread and whiskey.
Yeah.
All the grain that Caledonia has used that I've grown the last 8 years, about 180 barrels, is all grown in Vermont. The organic grain. And they made a real commitment to that. That's noteworthy.
Other questions for Todd?
Good luck.
And,
Thank you.
and Joe, anything more for Joe?
Joe's, slideshow is now on the line, it's really good if you want to take a look at this story.
So you'll send that to
It's
us?
online. It's under our.
Davida, but it's quite amazing that you're next to the parking lot or the train station. And they wouldn't share any of the information about their traffic studies. Right next to the parking lot.
Yeah, it's all about money.
Are you gonna be able to interact with railroad carts for like offloading and unloading grain one day?
I
don't
wondered that
think-
too.
I don't think we'll get to that. You know, I've been down to the King Arthur X Bakery in Cambridge, Mass, where the railroad cars came in from Nebraska.
Okay.
And, if we can get a tractor trailer to come in with 6 or 24 totes, that'll keep us busy for a while.
Sure, yeah. That makes sense.
And, you know, most Vermont farms are gonna send you 1, 2, 3, or 4
That's true.
and bring it in on their 12-foot bed truck. That it fits just fine. So that's the scale that we're looking at, and that'll be a full business in itself.
It's exciting.
And the organic farmers, the Vermont farmers aren't gonna be filling railroad cars, so we're not gonna be unloading them.
Okay.
This is beautiful.
Well, it's a pleasure and an honor to talk to all of you.
Well, it's our pleasure to have you both in, and I mean, it's exciting and challenging and, you know, it, sounds like a real great thing that you both you're doing and you're attempting to do. You probably wish your hair was his color, right?
Who knows?
I wish mine were.
Few people are younger at heart than Todd is.
I'm always happy to be with Joe. I'm glad you put us together at the same time. We're gonna go to Maine soon to look at another laser unit. I think it's laser color sorter.
Yeah, it's optical sorter. It's something like 1,000 cameras, and as the grain or beans drop through this chute, there's all these pneumatic jets. You know, if you hook it up with a big compressor, and anything that's off color, splits or mold pressure or whatever, just are gone. And it has an incredible throughput, really good degree of efficacy if you calibrate it right. And it's the missing link in being able to scale up bean and grains on that post-harvest handle on the side.
It's kind of the last machine, and I didn't buy it because it's 74,000, but
You know, it's great for it.
Joe, to his credit, is doing it. But here's the segue to age. Joe suggested right away that we're gonna go into northern central Maine and back in one day. And, you know, as a commercial beekeeper and a father, you know, I've had 2,000-mile week after week. And getting the kids to school and working with the bees and the grain. And I can do it.
How far up, Newport
Yeah, a
or
Rustic.
someplace?
Oh,
A rooster.
The county,
Yeah,
the county.
yeah.
but Joe said one day, back and forth, Joe lives in Montpelier, he's gonna pick me up in Greensboro, no later than 3 a.m. And we're gonna go to Aroostook County and back
That's a ride.
in one day. And because it's Joe,
You'll do it.
and he has the energy, I'm up for it. And 2 people can do it.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't be a safe choice if it was just one of us, yeah.
How far
Thank you.
off 95 is it?
I haven't looked at it in a little bit. It's Aurora Farm and Mill. It's another organic dairy that transitioned to grain. Next generation is converting it to grain, and they built a big mill up there. And one of the things that they're running into is for some of the stuff they wanted to do is they need an optical sorter. So they're the only people in the Northeast that have this one that we're getting from an outfit out of Nova Scotia or Prince Edward Island.
Prince Edward Island.
Prince Edward Island, North Valley Ag. And the only other optical sorters I'm aware of are 2 in the Finger Lakes. I don't believe there's one in the state of Vermont yet. There's only the one that I'm aware of in Maine. There might be more, I just don't know about them. It's it's a pretty linchpin piece of the puzzle that hopefully is, you know, sort of like the New American Stone Mills. Hopefully, this is one of many to come.
Yeah.
More and more people will have them.
Well, I'll just say have a safe trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And good luck.
Stay awake.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot for your time, you know, it means a lot to us to hear people with the boots on the ground and keeping us tuned in the right direction.
Well, we're all in this together.